Welcome back to Comic Wars. I do apologize for yet again being a little late, even though it's going to be starting a little later tonight. I do apologize. But tonight is a very special night. And the reason I say that is because how often do you see a Creepypasta character? For those that are not familiar with Creepypastas, those are online stories. They're told kind of like a campfire story. And they're very creepy, hence the name. And that's their whole point, is the whole shtick is to kind of scare you just like how a campfire story would. But a lot of these are also quite disturbing. And this one in particular, Jeff the Killer, definitely takes the cake on that one, on the creep factor. It's a little... It seems normal at first, and then it gets darker and darker and darker and darker until it gets really, really dark. And he'll be taking on his opponent, Brahms Heelshire. Now this is a character from a 2016 horror movie titled The Boy. We'll get into this in a bit, but this is basically a battle between who is deadlier, a creepypasta killer or horror movie killer. Well, we'll go and discover this a little more tonight as we delve into this. Alright, so just remember that the victor of each match is announced at the outcome during the end of the show, and this is also where you guys will get the preview for the next episode, which will be this upcoming Friday. It'll be actually the last episode of Comic Wars of 2022. Man, time just flies. But without further ado, let's get into the overview. Alright, so as usual, if we had a guest, this is where we would bring the guest on. This is where we'd have conversation. Maybe, introduce, where you can, who they are and where you can find their shows or content. This is where we go over their guesses as well. So who would win? And of course, this is not where I take, chat guesses, but hey, you guys are welcome to guess away, and I'll go and definitely be talking about whatever's in chat throughout the show as well. But after that, then we get into the background details. This is where we start breaking down things like age, height, weight, experience, occupation, personality, maybe some miscellaneous information. This is definitely a season where this has definitely played a factor here. It doesn't always, though. But some matchups you actually have to consider this, as they do play an effect on other categories. After that, then we get into the feats. This is where we look at their greatest strength feats: durability, speed and agility, martial prowess, ingenuity, any kind of combat capabilities they might have, weapons, powers, gadgets, you name it. This is where we go over it all. We just start listing things. And after that, then we go and get into the actual data, the real hard data of this, where we break everything down. Now, you're going to notice there's episodes where we don't really break much down because it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. I mean, honestly, it's like if they're just athletic and we know that they're basically, their base from is, from, we'll say 200 to 250, it can play a factor, but generally it doesn't play too big of a factor. You guys will see as you guys continue to watch Comic Wars episodes, you'll see those things going on. Other matches we do actually have to. Especially later on in other matches, as we start getting to the finals, that's where we start to have to break this down. After that, then we get into the character pros and cons. This is almost kind of like where we break down who would win, but not exactly. We start really weighing things out, like, is this a strength or weakness in this case here? This is where you can really argue that the outcome is being discussed, but we're just kind of laying everything out, kind of how things kind of fall into place. This is where we'll also go and give points that are just dead giveaway. This is going to be this character no matter what, right? After that, then we get into the guest analysis. This is also where we would go over the guesses from chat as well. So for those that want to guess in chat or in the comments, feel free, drop them there. We'll go over it. Comments I probably won't receive, especially if they're after the show or they're just after the show's already ended. Obviously, you guys won't be getting those responded that way. So those will be in the comments. So make sure to go and like, subscribe. Or if you guys don't like the video, hey, it's okay. Hit dislike. I encourage it. I want to know what you guys like and don't like. I'm probably one of the few that's actually saying, yeah, hit the dislike if you don't like this. But, but yeah, I really do want to know, because when it comes down to it, next season, this is what's going to kind of develop into next season. Are these types of characters going to be something you guys like or not? And then after that, this is where we would go over the outcome, which is the last part, and then we would go over a preview. So who wins and why. If it's not just kind of this character just completely outclasses this character, then why doesn't this character outclass, and what scenarios are going to give each other the edge, if you will. And this has been a season of scenarios being needed to be explained, because you just pit two characters against each other that are pretty evenly matched. It's kind of a toss-up. Well, now you start looking at scenarios. What's going to give them an edge? So, all right. So let's get into our first combatant. Jeff the Killer. Created by a character, or by a writer named Seusser. I do apologize. I will have to adjust that in the description, as I put Seusser, but it's Seusser. I do apologize for that. But this guy's real name is actually Jeffrey Woods. As of right now, he would be in his 20s. We don't exactly know how old he is. Because this was written in 2011, he was approximately 13. He would be in his 30s or 20s, late 20s most likely at this point. Well, no, he'd be like mid-20s, but we don't really know how old he is. End of the day, we don't. So, as for his height, now this is where things vary, because every story he's been in, he goes between 5 feet to 6 feet. We don't really know, so just for the case of this one, unlike how we did with the Totally Naked Man episode, when he took on Ghost Kiss, his height varied. And that's literally the artist's art style. This is written. So we don't know approximately what it is. So because this is just written content, we're going to say 5'5". All right. It's different if there was like a comic book, right? As for his weight, we're thinking it's probably around 160 pounds, because he is described as being athletic, very fit and athletic of a character. So he's probably going to be on like top scale when it comes down to like athletic weight for his height. So about 160 pounds seems pretty good, but we don't really know actually what his exact weight is. As for his occupation, well, he's a serial killer, and we don't know where he actually operates out. It kind of seems like he just operates wherever. As for his personality, well, he's extremely ruthless. And one of our first characters actually hits this, extremely ruthless. This guy will literally stop at nothing to go and get his target. He doesn't care. Once you're made, he's coming after you. But he's also brutal, sadistic, psychotic, and he's got a twisted sense of humor, and well, he's kind of got that snarky teenager type of attitude as well. So basically, this is where we get, if you guys have played Dead by Daylight, this is essentially where we get an early image of Legion, it appears. Now, I haven't seen any exact, oh yeah, this is inspiration for Legion, but this does appear to be it. As for some miscellaneous information, well, his psychosis actually came from seeing his own twisted face after he was attacked, and this is actually after he was burned alive. He survived it, and that drove him mad. So, all right, and up next we have his feats. So this guy is pretty straightforward. His strength, and his speed and agility, they're just athletic human male. He's athletic. We know he doesn't have a really, really like superhuman strength or supernatural tier strength. No, he's just athletic. Could this guy go and beat a lot of we'll say athletes out there, probably. And this comes down to his durability as well, because yeah, he's just wearing clothing, but he has a high pain tolerance. Just a few notable things as to what he's taken. He's fought while bleach was burning his eyes and skin. And he's been burned alive in a fight and he didn't die. Not to mention, there was no pain when he cut off his own eyelids. He cut his mouth. I mean, he damaged himself and he didn't care. It didn't bother him. In fact, he was laughing through it. So that should tell you he's got a very, very high pain tolerance. This is actually, and that's the thing. It's like, is he up there with some of these other serial killers? Yes. He's up there, not necessarily with like Jason Voorhees tier, but different version of Michael Myers. Yes, he's up there. But yeah, still, he doesn't have durability of Michael per se. As for some combat capabilities, well, his martial prowess, he's extremely proficient with knives. That's all we really know. He's pretty effective. He's self-taught. Okay, so this isn't a character that has been taught by some, like a Rambo or anything like this. No. This guy he's self-taught, and he just got to this level just from taking people on. As for his ingenuity, well, he plays kind of a long haul when it comes to his planning. If he does decide to do that, he plans for a very, very long time, and then from what we've gathered, every single one of these creepypastas, he has been successful. Every single one. So we're just going to label as highly efficient successes, because obviously, we don't know what happens in between these creepypastas. They're also written by different people. So, end of the day, highly efficient successes. He also is known to rush in for the kill when the opportunity arrives. I mean, he doesn't care what's happening to him. He doesn't care what the odds are. He rushes. As for his weapon, well, he only comes equipped with an 8-inch Bowie knife. This guy doesn't bring a whole lot to the combat. Doesn't really need it. But what about his opponent? That's the real question here. And that's where we get into Brahms, who was brought to us by Lakeshore Entertainment. His real name is Brahms Heelshire. He is 29 years old. He's approximately 6 foot 3 inches tall and approximately 159 pounds. This is based on the actor's height and weight. We don't really know if that's exact or not, because there's no data to show this is how tall or how heavy this guy is. So we're going to go off the actor's height and weight. As for his occupation, he's a serial killer. As we've had most of these characters on this season. And his area of operation is strictly the Heelshire mansion. We know that he technically could wander the grounds, but he likes to hide within the walls of the Heelshire mansion. As for his personality, well, he's pretty simple. He's a sociopath, but very childlike. He didn't really, after he had killed one of his friends at a young age, I believe they were 6 years old, he basically tried to fake his own death, and then his parents hid him within his own mansion. So his education level isn't high at all, really. We don't know, if they brought in tutors or they taught him themselves. We don't know. All we know is that he's still very childlike. And it's also said, and this is just miscellaneous information, he was driven mad by a demon that was possessing his porcelain doll. Very, very much like Annabelle. But we don't see much proving that in the first movie. The second movie, where you don't even see him at all, you see a little more proof of it. But we don't know for sure. As for his strength, well, you can deem him as an athletic human male. And his durability, we know he does feel pain. But much like typical slashers in these horror movies, he's got an above average human male durability. So he's able to go and fight off other strong males and take their hits and all this like they're nothing, basically. But he does feel pain. We know that. As for speed and agility, well, he's another athletic human male. So this is just a guy. As for his combat capabilities, well, he's got no known martial arts training, doesn't show a high level of proficiency with any tier of weapon at all. But this is where this gets a little interesting. He hides in the walls of his mansion, and he uses fear to control and manipulate his opponents. Most of his opponents have been nannies, but when he did have a couple of adult human females in his manor, we don't really know what their tiers were. He was able to at least kill one of them. I have yet to see this movie, so I've been watching clips, so I do apologize for that. So I'm not going to be the greatest, but I really tried to break this down as much as I possibly could, because there was people just telling me, "Oh, this guy, he's really he can give a lot of these killers a run for their money." I looked and I couldn't find anything. I've seen all these things on YouTube saying, "Oh, he can take on these guys. Oh, the likes of all these other characters. Yeah, no, he could take them." I'm just going to tell you right now, you put him against any of these mainstream killers and slashers, no, he does not win. I'm going to tell you that right now. Guys like Ghostface could put up a chance. The Fisherman, he could put up a little bit of a chance. You go and throw him against Jason, Leatherface, Michael, he does not win. This is actually a killer that I can actually definitively say, if he were to run into them in down the road, he would not win against them. So that should tell you something there. This guy is kind of a low-tier guy. Okay, he's very, very human, very squishy, just like the rest of us. But he likes to go and use fear to control and manipulate opponents. Now, this is a good strategy, because fear, now you're basically going to induce fight or flight. And depending on who your opponent is, what their background is, more often than not, it does appear that people will run before they fight. Especially nowadays. So we break that into this, and okay, now he's going to have an edge, because when they're running, they're scared. So you're like, okay, well, stamina and speed increase is basically what you're looking at. That's all he has to worry about. Strength, probably not. They're going to have adrenaline pumping through him, but they're going to be trying to focus on trying to get away versus trying to fight him off. So all he has to do is catch him off guard and done. Okay, that's basically how this breaks down. As far as weapons he brings into this, it's a pike pole. If you guys are not familiar with that, it's like a short pole with a hook and like a spear tip at the top of it, and a baseball bat. So he's going to have some reach on Jeff here. Okay, so like I said, we don't really have to break anything down here, because we don't get to see their lifting capabilities really a whole lot. The only one we actually got a whole lot of is going to be striking capabilities, and that's going to be directly from Jeff the Killer. And his striking capabilities, well, that comes down to his proficiency with his knife. But once again, he's human. Okay, so we're going to skip the data analysis, because there's really not much we need to go off of here. Because if you break it down, they're going to have roughly about the same level of reach. Well, I take that back, actually. They're going to be around the same weight, if I'm not mistaken. Double check. Yeah, they're about the same weight, but Brahms is also taller. So this is going to be, he's a thinner guy. He's not really like full-on athlete-like. And we know this for a fact. He's not as athletic as Jeff the Killer. So when it comes down to his speed, he'll be quick, but he's not. We know he's decently quick, but he's not. He's definitely not his tier when it comes in descriptions and what we see from the movies. He's quick, but not that quick. But we're actually going to get right into analysis. This is actually going to be our shortest episode of the season, so I do apologize for those that were expecting somewhat of a longer episode, more breakdown. No, there's really not much to break down. I broke it down right here. This is how this all breaks down. It's pretty straightforward. We're looking at roughly similar characters here. And then we're going to look at reach. We're going to look at all this, and that's how this is break down. So who do you guys think wins this? I honestly thought this was going to be more of an interesting matchup. I really did. But after I started gathering the data, things my mind changed quite a bit. So don't get me wrong, they do have a place in this season for sure. You'll see when we start going over their opponents and things like this. They do have a place. But I did want to clear this up. Give you guys another about 30 seconds. All right. So let's break this down. Okay, now background is going to play a factor here, and I will explain. If you were to go and look at their backgrounds here, we're saying he's 5'5" at 160. At weight, this is going to show that Jeff the Killer is actually going to be, he's going to be a little bit denser than Brahms. He's going to be shorter by about, 10 inches or so. Okay, so he's shorter, and his reach is going to be out quite a bit because baseball bat and the pike pole. However, this is where things are going to play a little interesting because the personality. Jeff the Killer does not care. He will take the hit. In fact, I mean, he's going to enjoy more of hurting somebody like quite a bit, and this is a character that will take the hit. Brahms, he still tries to avoid. He's in that pain tolerance. So this is where this kicks in, where things are kind of mixed up a little bit here. When it comes down to who's got the back or the edge background-wise, this is where the only thing we have to look at here is personality. Personality and weight. Jeff's going to be able to throw his weight. It's going to be a greater amount of weight being thrown, per swing. Okay, he doesn't have the reach, but it's not by much. So he's going to be able to get in there. But this is a character that will take a hit. Brahms will try to avoid, so therefore when it comes down to it, Jeff the Killer does get a little bit of a boost here. Just because of that alone. This is a character that will take a hit. He wants to, because he's going to be able to get the kill. And he's going to do whatever he can to do so. Alright, so next up then we have to go and look at their feats. Well, we know that strength-wise, they're athletic human males. But this is the part where it gets a little interesting, because now pound per pound, that's where you break this down. Jeff the Killer is going to have a slight edge. He weighs more, and on top of that, he's shorter. So the muscle mass and everything, his hits are going to be, they're going to feel a lot worse, just to break it down. But not by much. Strength is going to be pretty close, but this is going to be definitely a slight edge to Jeff the Killer. Durability, this automatically goes right to Jeff the Killer because his high pain tolerance. He literally cut off his own eyelids and cut his own mouth and was laughing while doing so. There was no pain at all. He's taken several hits, been beaten. He's had glass smashed over his head, burned alive, fought while bleach was burning his eyes and skin. Brahms, he's had some minor damage, but we get to see that when he gets stabbed, he goes, ugh. He'll get up and he'll start to fight, but he succumbs real quick. Once again, this comes down to his body mass. He's a little guy, more or less. He's a tall guy, but he's kind of a little guy. So, blood loss, Jeff the Killer's bulkier. End of the day. So, Jeff the Killer takes that. Speed and agility. Now, this is where things get also interesting. Jeff the Killer, he rushes groups. And when you read about him, he rushes pretty good-sized groups at times. But he also takes on people that are older than him, people that are even trying to prepare for him, and he still takes them down with ease. He outstalks the stalkers, all this. I mean, he's also, but the thing is this isn't a guy that chooses to dodge. He can, and we know that he has in some of these creepypastas. And he easily outmaneuvers people. So, like literally ducking under, bobbing and weaving through attacks, getting right into somebody, and then going and taking out the rest of them. We know Brahms can dodge, but he's not that agile when it comes down to speed. He's having trouble keeping up with somebody that we don't really know how athletic she is in the movie, really. But with Jeff the Killer, we know he's taken on some of these bullies when he's younger. Some of the characters he's taken on in the later stories, they've been very athletic as well. So where it comes down to this, just based on that, you get description of athletic characters, and then, well, we really don't know much about the athletic levels of these characters in these movies. So end of the day, that's going to go to Jeff the Killer. Martial prowess, that's a Jeff the Killer. And why is that? Because he's got actual proficiency. We know he's proficient with a knife. When it comes down to Brahms, there's no actual proficiency. He's still a child in his mind. That's all he is. He's just still a child. So that you can't even give it to Brahms at all. As for his ingenuity, now this is interesting here. They have two different strategies. One's got the long planning and got for the long haul, but also has the short term, where you have Brahms, who's all mid-tier. He plays the early game, technically speaking. He can go from early to mid. But he's not a long term. Eventually, it's the fear factor's there, but it's more of kind of a mid-game type of strategy. Early into mid-game, reveal and then decimate. That's basically how he would have to work. Jeff the Killer's got one that's kind of just all around. Okay? So that's gonna go to Jeff the Killer. And this isn't, I promise you, this is not, a preference here. There's no biases. When I watched the clips from when I saw Brahms is, he's pretty terrifying. If you think about how he operates, he's playing with you. He's a psychological killer. He's playing with you in a way that it's just, you think he's the doll, but really he's not. So Jeff the Killer is just very, very upfront, more or less honest about what he's going to do. You can see this coming. For the most part, it's pretty obvious what you're about to encounter Jeff the Killer. It's pretty obvious. As much as, you listen to the creepypastas, you read them, they try to make it seem like, oh, no, you don't know when this guy's coming. No, you do. You do. You see all the signs pretty early on. But now this is going to be the difference here, because now when it comes to the last category, which is weapons, that goes to Brahms. Brahms literally takes that. He's got 2 weapons for 1. And for 2, yeah, he doesn't have the proficiency level, but he's got reach with them. Pretty good amount of reach, too. Plus, he's also got a skewering type of attack. He's got one where he can drag you in. He can swing with a baseball bat. And baseball bats are dense. Is that going to be able to beat the Bowie knife? Yeah. It could, very easily. So when it comes down to it, it's going to be more or less more is better in this case, and he's got more versatility with usage. Jeff the Killer's literally got slashing. He can do some minor parrying and blocking, but it's short range. So his parrying and blocking, he's got to get him real close. He's got a maneuver, which he can do, but when it comes down to can he pull people with it, not as easily as Brahms can. Brahms is going to have an advantage with that. That being said, this is pretty obvious with who wins this matchup tonight. It's Jeff the Killer. And it's pretty much a no contest. So for those that were curious about this before, now this is settled. I can assure you, Jeff the Killer would absolutely just destroy Brahms. Absolutely. This is not even a question, honestly. And that's why I almost felt bad when I was doing this episode, because I was like, it became pretty clear. This is going to just basically just be Jeff the Killer just trouncing him. Honestly, this is why I said data, it's not going to matter. You just break it down on basic levels. You don't even need to do the math. At the end of the day, Jeff the Killer is just going to have such a lead against him. All right. But, that being said, we have our next episode to talk about. This one is going to be another very, very interesting one. that's going to be a battle between the creeper and the predator. They're two hunters. They're hunting for different reasons, but one is a supernatural hunter, demonic even by nature. Well, the other one